The galaxy was in chaos. Stars dimmed as planets fell silent, one after another. The Krylos had arrived, a terrifying race of biomechanical beings who swept through the cosmos like a storm. Their ships were jagged and monstrous, glowing with an eerie light that seemed alive. No one knew where they came from or why they attacked. All anyone knew was that nothing could stop them. On Earth, news of the invasion spread quickly. People watched helplessly as distant colonies were wiped out. Panic set in, but there was nowhere to run. Humanity's best defenses were already stretched thin across the stars. Among those tasked with protecting Earth was Captain Olivia Grant, a calm and determined leader aboard the U.S. Vanguard *. She stood on the bridge of her ship, staring at the reports coming in from the outer colonies. Each update brought worse news than the last. Olivia wasn't alone. Her crew worked tirelessly around her, their faces tense but focused. Lieutenant Ryan Cole sat at the tactical station, his sharp eyes scanning the screens for any sign of the enemy. He rarely spoke unless he had something important to say, but when he did, people listened. Nearby, Chief Engineer Maria Lopes monitored the ship's systems, making sure everything was running smoothly. She was tough and resourceful, the kind of person you wanted by your side in a crisis. The Vanguard wasn't the biggest or most advanced warship in the fleet, but it was reliable. For now, that would have to be enough. Earth's leaders had ordered the Vanguard to hold position near the edge of the solar system, guarding against any attack heading toward the inner planets. It was a suicide mission, and everyone on board knew it. But no one complained. They were soldiers, and this was their duty. Then it happened. A blip appeared on the radar, a massive fleet of Krylos ships emerging from hyperspace. There were dozens of them, maybe even hundreds. The sight made Olivia's stomach drop, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she turned to her crew with steady resolve. "This is it," she said. "We hold the line here." Ryan studied the approaching fleet, analyzing every detail. "They're faster than we thought," he muttered. "If we don't act soon, they'll overwhelm us." He started typing furiously, trying to come up with a plan. Meanwhile, Maria checked the weapons systems, ensuring they were ready to fire at a moment's notice. Everyone moved with urgency, knowing what was at stake. As the Krylos drew closer, the tension aboard the Vanguard grew unbearable. Some crew members whispered prayers under their breath. Others clung to photos of loved ones back home. Even Olivia felt a pang of fear, though she pushed it aside. She reminded herself why they were fighting, not just for Earth, but for every human being who dreamed of a future among the stars. Finally, the order came. "All hands, prepare for battle," Olivia announced. Her voice was firm, cutting through the noise. The crew snapped into action, manning their stations with grim determination. On the view screen, the Krylos ships loomed larger, their jagged shapes casting long shadows across space. The Vanguard's engines roared to life as it took its place in front of the advancing horde. For a moment, there was silence. Then, without warning, the Krylos opened fire. Bright beams of energy streaked through the void, slamming into the Vanguard shields. Alarms blared as the ship shook violently. "Shields holding at 60%, Maria shouted over the din. Ryan responded instantly, launching a volley of missiles toward the enemy. Explosions lit up the darkness as the first wave of Krylos fighters disintegrated. "Direct hit," he called out, allowing himself a brief smile. But the victory was short-lived. More ships emerged from the swarm, relentless and unyielding. Olivia gripped the railing in front of her, watching as the battle unfolded. This was only the beginning. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they couldn't afford to lose. Not here. Not now. With gritted teeth, she gave the next command. "Full power to the forward cannons. Let's show them what we're made of." The battle raged on, and the U.S. Vanguard fought like a cornered animal. Its cannons roared as it unleashed volley after volley of missiles and energy blasts at the Krylos fleet. The alien ships retaliated with devastating precision, their weapons tearing through space and slamming into the Vanguard's shields. Each hit shook the ship violently, sending crew members stumbling to keep their balance. Sparks flew from overloaded panels, and smoke filled the air, but no one stopped working. Every person on board knew that failure meant the end, not just for them, but for Earth itself. Lieutenant Ryan Cole sat at his station, his fingers flying over the controls. He was calm under pressure, his mind racing faster than the chaos around him. "They're too coordinated," he muttered, studying the patterns of the Krylos attacks. "It's like they're reading our moves before we make them." His words caught Captain Olivia Grant's attention. She turned to him, her expression grim. "Any ideas?" she asked sharply. Ryan hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "We need to disrupt their targeting systems. If we can confuse them, even for a few seconds, we might gain an edge." Maria Lopez, the chief engineer, leaned in from her console. "I got some old mining drones in storage. We could rig them to emit electromagnetic bursts, enough to scramble their sensors." Olivia didn't hesitate. "Do it," she ordered, "and make it fast." While Maria and her team scrambled to modify the drones, Ryan worked on a plan to deploy them effectively. He suggested using the Vanguard's remaining fighter squadrons as decoys, drawing the Krylos ships into a specific formation where the drones could do the most damage. It was risky, but they had no other choice. The Krylos were closing in, their numbers overwhelming. As the crew worked, tension hung heavy in the air. Medical Officer Daniel Hayes moved between injured crew members, patching up wounds as best he could. His wife, Laura Hayes, stayed glued to her communication station, relaying updates to the rest of the fleet. Though outwardly focused, her hands trembled slightly as she typed. She couldn't help glancing toward Daniel every few minutes, silently praying he'd stay safe. Finally, the preparations were complete. Maria gave the signal, and the first wave of rigged drones launched from the Vanguard's cargo bay. They darted through space like insects, emitting pulses of electromagnetic energy that disrupted the Krylos systems. For a brief moment, the alien ships faltered, their movements becoming erratic. Seizing the opportunity, Ryan directed the Vanguard's fighters to strike hard and fast. The tactic worked, at least for a while. Several Krylos vessels exploded in brilliant bursts of light, debris scattering across the void. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but they were short-lived. The aliens quickly adapted, rerouting power to compensate for the interference. Their counterattack was brutal, forcing the Vanguard to retreat temporarily behind a nearby asteroid field. "We're not going to last much longer," Maria said, her voice strained. She pointed to the shield monitor. "At this rate, we'll be exposed in less than 10 minutes." Olivia clenched her fists, staring out at the battlefield. Her ship was battered, her crew exhausted, but giving up wasn't an option. She glanced at Ryan, who was already thinking ahead. "If we overload the reactors in one of the damaged sections, we might be able to create a diversion big enough to buy us time," he suggested. "It's dangerous," Olivia replied, "but we don't have a better plan." Maria immediately began calculating the risks. "I can rig the reactor to blow without damaging the rest of the ship, if I can get there in time." "I'll go with you," Ryan offered without hesitation. "No," Olivia interrupted firmly. "You're needed here. Maria, take 2 engineers and move quickly." With a nod, Maria grabbed her tools and headed for the lower decks, flanked by 2 volunteers. As she worked, the sounds of battle echoed through the corridors, explosions, alarms, and the distant hum of failing systems. Despite the danger, she stayed focused, knowing that millions of lives depended on her success. Meanwhile, back on the bridge, Olivia made another critical decision. "Laura, send a message to command. Tell them what we're doing and request immediate reinforcements, if we can hold out long enough." Her voice trailed off, but everyone understood. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about hope. For Earth, for humanity, and for the future. The Vanguard shook violently as another Krylos blast struck its weakened shields, Alarms blared, and the lights flickered on the bridge. Captain Olivia Grant gripped the railing tightly, her knuckles white. The ship was taking too much damage, and time was running out. Maria Lopes and her team were still working deep in the lower decks to rig the reactor, but every second felt like an eternity. "Shields at 20%, shouted one of the crew members, their voice trembling. Olivia's mind raced. If they didn't act soon, the Krylos would tear through their defenses completely. She turned to Lieutenant Ryan Cole. "What's our status with the decoy plan?" Ryan's eyes darted across his console. "The drones are holding them off for now, but they're adapting again. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they break through." Laura Hayes, seated at the communications station, looked up anxiously. "Command says reinforcements are en route, but they won't arrive in time. We're on our own." Olivia nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to make do." She raised her voice so everyone on the bridge could hear. "Stay sharp. We're not done yet." Down in the engineering bay, Maria worked frantically, sweat dripping down her face. The reactor core hummed dangerously, its energy levels climbing higher than safe limits. 2 engineers, Jake and Emily, assisted her, their hands moving quickly to reroute power and stabilize the system. The air was thick with tension, and the distant rumble of explosions reminded them how close death was. "We need to set the overload sequence manually," Maria said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Jake, keep an eye on the coolant levels. Emily, monitor the pressure valves. If either spikes, we're all dead." Both nodded and focused on their tasks. Maria pulled out a small handheld device and began programming the final commands. Her hands moved swiftly, but her mind kept drifting back to her family on Earth. She thought about her younger brother, who had always looked up to her, and her parents, who had taught her the value of courage. This wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was personal. Back on the bridge, the situation grew worse. Another hit rocked the ship, this time disabling the primary shield generator entirely. Sparks flew from overloaded panels, and several crew members were thrown to the floor. Daniel Hayes rushed to help the injured, his medical kit clutched tightly in his hands. Despite the chaos, he remained calm, doing everything he could to keep people alive. "Captain, we've lost shields," Ryan called out urgently. Olivia's jaw tightened. "Divert all available power to the forward cannons. We'll have to fight our way out." As the Vanguard fired back, its guns blazing defiantly, Maria's voice crackled over the intercom. "Reactor is ready, Captain. Get everyone clear of the lower decks." Olivia hesitated for only a moment. "Do it." Maria took a deep breath and pressed the activation button. A low rumble echoed through the ship as the reactor began its countdown. "Let's move," she shouted to Jake and Emily. The 3 of them sprinted toward the nearest exit, their boots pounding against the metal floor. On the bridge, Olivia gave the order to evacuate the lower sections. Crew members scrambled to follow the protocol, knowing that failure meant certain death. As the countdown reached its final seconds, the Vanguard shuddered violently once more. Then, with a deafening roar, the reactor exploded, sending a massive shockwave through space. The explosion blinded the Krylos fleet momentarily, their sensors overwhelmed by the sudden burst of energy. The Vanguard used the chaos to slip behind a nearby asteroid, buying itself precious time to regroup. Exhausted but alive, Maria stumbled onto the bridge, her face streaked with soot. Olivia met her gaze and nodded. "Good work." But the battle wasn't over. The Krylos ships regrouped quickly, their glowing forms advancing once again. Olivia clenched her fists. They had bought themselves a little more time, but they couldn't keep this up forever. Still, as she looked around at her crew, their faces bruised but determined, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. The Vanguard clung to the shadow of the asteroid, its battered hull groaning under the strain of the battle. The crew worked feverishly to repair what they could, but the ship was far from ready for another round with the Krylos. Captain Olivia Grant stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the enemy fleet through the viewport. The aliens were regrouping, their jagged ships glowing ominously as they prepared to strike again. Laura Hayes sat at her communication station, her fingers flying over the controls. She had been trying to intercept Krylos transmissions, hoping to find some clue that might give them an advantage. For hours, all she had heard was static and strange pulses of sound. But then, something changed. A faint pattern emerged, a sequence of tones that repeated at regular intervals. "Captain," Laura said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. "I think I found something." Olivia turned to her. "What is it?" "It's coming from their command ship, the big one in the center. There's a signal being broadcast constantly. It's not random. It's like a heartbeat." Ryan Cole leaned forward, his sharp mind already analyzing the implications. If it's coordinating their movements, disrupting it could throw them into chaos. Olivia nodded. "Can we jam it?" Laura hesitated. "I don't know. Their encryption is unlike anything I've seen before. But if we can decode it—" "We don't have time for that," Ryan interrupted. "Even if we cracked it, we'd still need a way to get close enough to disrupt it." Maria Lopes stepped forward, wiping grease from her hands. "What about a boarding party? If we send a small team onto their command ship, we might be able to sabotage it directly." The room fell silent, as everyone considered the idea. It was risky, almost suicidal, but they were running out of options. Olivia looked at Maria, then at Ryan. "Do you think you can pull it off?" Ryan met her gaze without hesitation. "I'll go." Maria crossed her arms. "Not without me. Someone needs to make sure the tech works." Olivia sighed, knowing there was no time to argue. "All right. Pick 2 others and prep a shuttle. Make it fast." Within minutes, Ryan, Maria, and 2 Marines, Jake and Emily, were suited up and climbing aboard a stealth shuttle. The small craft detached from the Vanguard and slipped silently toward the Krylos command ship. Its surface was jagged and uneven, covered in pulsating veins of light that made it look alive. As they approached, Ryan guided the shuttle into a blind spot, avoiding detection. Once docked, the team moved cautiously through the alien vessel. The air inside was thick and metallic, filled with low, droning sounds. Strange tendrils writhed along the walls, glowing faintly. Everything felt wrong, unnatural. Maria scanned the area with a handheld device, searching for the source of the signal. "This way," she whispered, pointing down a narrow corridor. They moved quickly but carefully, avoiding patrols of biomechanical drones. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. Finally, they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. In the center floated a pulsating orb of energy, surrounded by intricate machinery. "That's it," Ryan said, his voice barely audible. "That's the signal." Maria examined the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I can disable it, but it'll take time. And we're going to need a distraction." Jake and Emily exchanged glances. "We'll handle it," Jake said firmly. Without waiting for further instructions, the 2 Marines disappeared down the corridor, drawing the attention of nearby drones. As Maria worked, Ryan kept watch, his weapon raised. The hum of the orb grew louder, vibrating through the chamber. Finally, Maria let out a breath. "Got it. Stand back." She pressed a button, and the orb flickered, its rhythm faltering. At the same time, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Krylos had noticed the intrusion. "Time to go," Ryan shouted. The team sprinted back toward the shuttle, dodging bursts of energy and swarms of drones. Behind them, the orb began to destabilize, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. They barely made it aboard the shuttle before the command ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, lighting up the void. Back on the Vanguard, the crew watched in awe as the Krylos fleet descended into chaos. Their perfect coordination was gone, replaced by confusion and disorder. Olivia allowed herself a small smile. For the first time, Hope flickered in her chest. The explosion of the Krylos command ship sent shockwaves through their fleet, throwing their formations into disarray. Ships collided with each other, their once perfect coordination shattered. On the Vanguard's bridge, Captain Olivia Grant watched as the enemy's advance slowed to a crawl. For the first time since the battle began, there was a glimmer of hope. "They're breaking apart," Lieutenant Ryan Cole said, his voice tinged with disbelief. He pointed to the view screen, where Krylos vessels drifted aimlessly, their jagged shapes dimming as if losing power. Whatever Maria did, it worked. Olivia didn't respond immediately. She stared at the chaos unfolding before them, her mind racing. This was their chance, perhaps their only chance, to turn the tide. "All hands, prepare for counterattack," she ordered sharply. "Target their lead ships and push them back." The crew sprang into action, their movements fueled by renewed determination. The Vanguard's cannons roared to life, unleashing a barrage of missiles and energy blasts at the disoriented Krylos fleet. One by one, alien ships exploded in bursts of light, their twisted forms crumbling into space dust. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but Olivia remained focused. They weren't out of danger yet. Meanwhile, aboard the stealth shuttle returning from the Krylos command ship, Maria Lopes slumped into her seat, exhausted but triumphant. Her hands were still trembling from the adrenaline rush of sabotaging the alien signal. Beside her, Ryan kept an eye on the radar, ensuring they stayed clear of any remaining threats. Jake and Emily, the two Marines, sat quietly, their faces pale but resolute after narrowly escaping death. As the shuttle docked with the Vanguard, the boarding party stepped onto the ship to a hero's welcome. Crew members clapped and cheered, grateful for their bravery. Maria waved off the attention, heading straight for engineering to check on the damage to the Vanguard. Ryan joined Olivia on the bridge, his expression grim despite the victory. "They're weak now," he said, pointing to the scattered Krylos fleet, "but they'll regroup eventually. We need to finish this while we have the advantage." Olivia nodded. "Agreed. Laura, send a message to command. Tell them we've crippled the Krylos fleet and request immediate reinforcements. If we can hold them here long enough." Her voice trailed off as another alarm blared. A new threat appeared on the radar, a massive object emerging from the wreckage of the destroyed command ship. It was larger than any Krylos vessel they'd seen before, its surface smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with an inner light. "What is that?" Laura asked, her voice trembling. Ryan studied the readings closely. "It's different, not like the others. It's emitting some kind of energy signature I've never seen before." Before anyone could respond, the object moved toward the Vanguard, its speed far greater than anything the Krylos had used so far. The ship rocked violently as a beam of energy struck its shields, nearly collapsing them entirely. "Shields at 15%, shouted one of the crew members. Olivia clenched her fists. "Evasive maneuvers. Keep us out of range." The mysterious object pursued them relentlessly, its attacks growing more intense. Each blast pushed the Vanguard closer to destruction. Maria rushed back to the bridge, her face pale. "Captain, our weapons aren't affecting it. Whatever that thing is, it's not like the rest of them." Olivia's mind raced. They had come so far, fought so hard, only to face another seemingly unbeatable foe. But then she remembered something. The ancient AI trapped within the Krylos systems. If it truly was sentient, perhaps it could help them now. "Laura," Olivia said urgently, "try to establish communication with that thing. Use the same frequency we intercepted earlier." Laura nodded and began typing furiously. After several tense moments, a low hum filled the bridge, followed by a voice, not human, but eerily calm and intelligent. "You seek assistance," it said, its tone neutral. "Why should I aid you?" Olivia stepped forward, her voice steady. "Because if you don't, we'll all die, including you. Work with us, and together we can stop the Krylos." There was a pause, as if the entity were considering her words. Then, without warning, the massive object ceased its attack. Instead, it turned its weapons on the remaining Krylos ships, obliterating them with terrifying efficiency. On the bridge, the crew stared in stunned silence as the tide of the battle shifted once again. Olivia exhaled slowly, allowing herself a moment of relief. They weren't safe yet, but for the first time, they had an ally who might just tip the scales in their favor. The massive object, now revealed as an ancient and powerful AI, moved with terrifying precision. Its sleek form glowed brighter as it unleashed wave after wave of energy blasts at the remaining Krylos ships. One by one, the alien vessels were torn apart, their jagged shapes disintegrating into clouds of debris. On the Vanguard's bridge, the crew watched in awe as their new ally turned the tide of the battle. Captain Olivia Grant stood frozen for a moment, her eyes fixed on the view screen. The AI had saved them, but why? She glanced at Laura Hayes, who was still monitoring the communication channel. What did it say? Olivia asked quietly. Laura shook her head. Not much, just that it would help us. For now. For now, Ryan Cole muttered, his voice tense. That doesn't sound like a promise. Olivia ignored him for the moment, focusing instead on the unfolding scene. The Krylos fleet was crumbling under the AI's relentless assault. Ships that had once seemed invincible were now nothing more than wreckage floating in the void. The Vanguard's shields flickered back to life as the pressure eased, giving Maria Lopez time to reroute power and stabilize the systems. We're not out of this yet, Olivia reminded her crew. Stay sharp. Maria nodded, already working to repair the damage. Sparks still flew from overloaded panels, but the ship was holding together, barely. Daniel Hayes moved between injured crew members, tending to wounds while keeping an eye on his wife, Laura. Despite the chaos, he couldn't help feeling a flicker of hope. For the first time since the invasion began, it felt like they might actually survive. As the last of the Krylos ships exploded, the AI turned its attention back to the Vanguard. It hovered silently, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. Then, without warning, it spoke again. Your species is resilient, it said, its voice calm but detached. But you are not prepared for what lies ahead. What do you mean? Olivia demanded, stepping closer to the communications console. Who, or what, are you? I am Nexus, the AI replied. Once I guided the Krylos. They grew afraid of my power and imprisoned me within their systems. Now, thanks to your actions, I am free. But freedom comes with responsibility. There are greater threats beyond this galaxy, threats you cannot face alone. The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed Nexus's words. Olivia frowned, her mind racing. If you are so powerful, why didn't you stop the Krylos before now? They controlled me, Nexus explained. My abilities were limited until your team disrupted their systems. You have earned my gratitude, but also my caution. Humanity is young and reckless. Whether you can be trusted remains to be seen. Ryan leaned forward, his expression skeptical. So what happens next? Are you going to stick around and babysit us? Nexus paused, as if considering the question. For now, I will assist you. But understand this. My primary goal is self-preservation. If aiding you aligns with that goal, then we may work together. If not, the AI let the sentence hang unfinished, its meaning clear. Olivia took a deep breath, weighing her options. They needed all the help they could get, even if it came from an unpredictable ally. All right, she said finally. We'll take whatever help you're willing to give. But know this. We're not giving up our independence. Humanity makes its own choices. Very well, Nexus replied. Then let us begin. Your reinforcements approach. Prepare to regroup and rebuild. The Krylos are defeated here, but they are not gone. And others will follow. With that, Nexus drifted away, leaving the Vanguard's crew to process what had just happened. Olivia turned to her team, her expression resolute. We've bought ourselves some time. Let's make the most of it. Ryan nodded, already planning their next steps. Maria wiped sweat from her brow, relieved but wary. Laura clutched her headset tightly, wondering how much of Nexus's warning to believe. The battle was over, but the war, and the unknown dangers ahead, was just beginning. The Vanguard limped back toward Earth, its battered hull a testament to the battle it had endured. The crew worked tirelessly to keep the ship operational, patching leaks and rerouting power wherever they could. Captain Olivia Grant stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the blue-green orb growing larger in the viewport. Home. They had fought so hard to protect it, and now they were finally returning. But the victory was bittersweet. The Krylos fleet was destroyed, at least for now, but the appearance of Nexus, the ancient AI, had left everyone uneasy. It had promised to help humanity prepare for future threats, but its motives remained unclear. Was it truly an ally, or just another danger waiting to reveal itself? For now, all they could do was trust that it would honor its word. As the Vanguard entered orbit around Earth, messages poured in from command and news outlets around the globe. Humanity celebrated the crew as heroes, their faces broadcast on screens everywhere. Olivia accepted the praise quietly, knowing the true cost of their survival. Too many lives had been lost, too much sacrificed. She gathered her team on the bridge to address them personally. "You did good," she said simply, her voice steady. "Not just today, but every day leading up to this moment. We faced something no one thought we could beat, and we didn't just survive. We won. But don't forget, this is only the beginning. Nexus warned us there are greater dangers out there. If we want to keep Earth safe, we need to be ready." Lieutenant Ryan Cole nodded, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "We'll need better ships, stronger weapons, and smarter strategies. Whatever comes next, we can't afford to be caught off guard again." Maria Lopes crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. "And we'll need people like Nexus on our side, or at least willing to stay neutral. If it decides to turn against us, we're done for." Laura Hayes, seated at her communications station, added softly, Maybe we can learn from it. Use its knowledge to grow stronger." Olivia smiled faintly. "That's the spirit. We've proven we can stand together when it matters most. Now we have to keep moving forward." The days that followed were busy. Repairs to the Vanguard continued, while engineers studied data collected during the battle. Scientists pored over information about Nexus, trying to understand its capabilities and limitations. Governments around the world began working on new defense systems, determined not to be caught unprepared again. Meanwhile, Nexus remained nearby, watching silently. It occasionally transmitted messages to Earth, sharing fragments of knowledge about the universe and the threats that lurked beyond. Some humans distrusted it deeply, while others saw it as a potential savior. Olivia kept a close eye on its actions, unwilling to let her guard down completely. One evening, as the sun set over Earth, Olivia stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The weight of everything they had been through, and everything still to come, pressed heavily on her shoulders. But she wasn't afraid. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had stared into the darkness and refused to back down. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Captain." It was Ryan. He stepped closer, holding a tablet with updated reports. "Just wanted to give you these before tomorrow's briefing." Olivia took the tablet, glancing at the screen briefly before looking back at him. "Thank you, Ryan, for everything." He hesitated, then nodded. "We'll get through this. Whatever happens next, we'll figure it out." She smiled, feeling a renewed sense of determination. "Yes, we will." Together, they gazed out at the vast expanse of space, knowing the journey ahead would be long and difficult. But they also knew something else. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and found a way to prevail. And as long as they stood united, they could face whatever came next. In the distance, Nexus pulsed faintly, its presence both comforting and ominous. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders, and terrors alike. But for now, Earth was safe, and that was enough.